according to segment 3.4, let's look at fixation. Now taking one step back, keep in mind this is the third area that we are analyzing with respect to copyrights. We've discussed originality, we've discussed works of authorship, and now we're going to discuss the third requirement, that there is some fixation of the work. So a work, according to section 101, 17 U.S.C. 101, work is fixed in a tangible medium of expression when its embodiment in a copy or phonorecord by or other or under the authority of the author is sufficiently permanent or stable. And I would indicate those are the key words: sufficiently permanent or stable to permit it to be perceived, reproduced, or otherwise communicated for a period of more than transitory duration. So when you're thinking about whether or not a work has been fixed, the question you should be asking is the work permanent or stable, sufficiently permanent or stable that later on it can actually be reproduced, or at least that it still exists in some manner. Copies are material objects other than phonorecords in which a work is fixed by any method now known or later developed. So a work is fixed, again, if it is sufficiently permanent or stable, and copies derived from, for example, the actual work itself may be fixed by any method. Now the conclusion here is twofold. One, that we need to have it sufficiently permanent or stable in order to get this to qualify for copyright protection. But additionally, until the work is actually fixed, no automatic federal copyright protection, in fact, is granted. And this would make sense because one of the requirements, according to the statute, in order to get automatic protection for copyrights and even for extended rights, is that the three requirements be satisfied: originality, works of authorship, and in this case, fixation. If fixation is not met, then it doesn't matter that the other two have been met because the third requirement is not satisfied. So until that third requirement of actually being fixed is satisfied, no copyright protection is granted. Let's take a look now at an example that hopefully ties this all together as far as the requirements of copyright. So the prompt is: TV Land magazine sues a competitor magazine, alleging that the competitor infringed copyright by copying the cover of an edition of TV Land. The competitor did not literally copy the text and layout, but rather the size, shape, and graphic design of the cover. The design is composed of basic elements, composed into a pleasing package likely to catch the eye of someone standing in line at a grocery checkout counter. So competitor argues that the design of a magazine cover is product packaging, not a work of authorship. So first off, is the design of the magazine cover a work of authorship? Now, let's take one step back. Before even we get to this question of work of authorship, we should be asking ourselves, does it satisfy the requirements for originality? And again, the requirements for originality include some independent creation and some minimal level of creativity. Let's look first at those two things. So, was there an independent creation by competitor magazine? And we see here that yes, although they did take some of the size, shape, and graphic design of the cover, they did not literally copy the text and the layout. So there are basic elements they used in theirs, but we would say, okay, there at least is some independent creation. It's just not taking TV Land's magazine cover and putting that on their own magazine cover. There's some independent creation. Was there some sufficient or minimal level of creativity? And again, the conclusion here is yes, there would be some minimal, albeit we don't know how much amount of creativity, but we know that there was some minimal amount of creativity so that the basic elements were composed to be a pleasing package. Okay, so originality has been satisfied here, which allows us to then go on to the next question, that is the design of the magazine cover a work of authorship? And we know that in order to get copyright protection needs to satisfy one of the works of authorship. In this case, we have some pictorial works. We also have a work of authorship. And the answer would be absolutely yes. That it qualifies for a work of authorship, and I explain a little bit more here, as 2D work. So a cover design definitely does fit within the definition of pictorial, graphic, and sculptural type works. And so to receive that protection, it definitely qualifies within that category. The last question that I indicated there is if it qualifies for copyright protection, namely the originality and work of authorship have been satisfied, the question lastly is fixation. And that relates to at what point was protection given. So the question you should be asking yourself there is, at what point was this actually fixed? Now, the facts do not necessarily indicate, but what we do know is that it says that the competitor infringed copyright by copying the cover. So presumably, competitor has printed out a magazine cover that has made TV Land disgruntled. And it's when that cover was printed out that it is actually fixed. And at that moment, originality obviously was previously satisfied, works of authorship was previously satisfied. So the last one would be fixation, and when they actually print out the cover, that would be satisfied as well. So if you have any questions on our analysis and how it is that we went through each of the tests, originality, works of authorship, and finality, or not finality, but that it is actually within a fixation, go ahead and reach out to me and ask me any questions that you have there.